having never been to America, you're multi-generational descendants of Confederates who fled the United States in 1860 something, and now here you are going to America for the first time in like 100 plus years.
I told Dan Coleman, well, where's your garage?
Carriage for car?
Yeah. Garage for a car.
Oi, tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
Você é brasileiro?
Sim.
Qual parte no Brasil?
Eu nasci no Paraná, passei uma temporada em Minas Gerais e eu estou em São Paulo desde 70.
Você fala inglês também?
Sim, um pouquinho. My English is a little rusty because I haven't been to the States for maybe 20 years. And I never stayed in the States over, say, 20 days. That was in 78. I speak English since I was a kid.
Your accent to me is so interesting because you have slight Brazilian accent, but also a Southern U.S. accent. Which
I think it's a little bit erased because I haven't been speaking English for a long time,
You might be the last person who has this kind of Southern accent.
Well, there's a distant cousin of mine. He's older than I am, but he would be probably the last one that I know of. When the South lost the war, a lot of people wanted to leave the country. General Lee was against it. Some diehard Southerners decided to come to Brazil. It is said that they spoke to Dom Pedro II, which was the emperor of Brazil at that time. We're talking 1866. And it was interesting for Brazil because of the war, the price of cotton shot up. Dom Pedro was interested in having cotton grown in Brazil, and they had plantations. When Jefferson Davis was captured, at least two of his guards came down to Brazil also. But what happened is that they came down, a small group came down and spoke to Dom Pedro, and they found land similar to Georgia. And about 400 families settled in Santa Barbara do Oeste. So they married between them, and they had the language barrier, and they lived on farms. They thrived, and they married, and my mother was one of the first ones that married out of the colony. I never went to school, and I learned how to speak English with my grandmother used to teach me English, but I used to spend vacations at my grandfather's farm. And my grandmother, she taught me English.
That's how you ended up with this Southern accent.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Because to me, this is so interesting because your family has been in Brazil for 5 generations now? 6 generations? Your grandmother grew up in Brazil speaking.
My grandmother spoke English and spoke Portuguese with a very heavy accent. My grandfather also. They never spoke Portuguese in the household.
She's growing up in Brazil in this town, speaking like Southern English and a Portuguese with a Southern American accent.
In the second or third generation, they had married between themselves, so they created a lot of schools here. They didn't have anything to do with Brazilians. They didn't
so their community only spoke English in this town.
Yeah.
Because when I listen to you, to me it sounds like a mix of something Slavic, but then this Alabama thing thrown in there.
I told you that, I'm rusty. First time I went to the States was in 79, and it was the strangest feeling that you could ever feel because, everything was different. I was in New York City, and everything was different. The smells were different. The buildings were different. The cars were different. The people were different. But I understood everything the hell they said. It's the strangest feeling.
I'm so curious. Like, what did that feel like to you, having never been to America? You're multi-generational descendants of Confederates who fled the United States in 1860 something, and now here you are going to New York, America, for the first time in like 100 plus years.
I visited the museum, the Cleveland Museum. You can stay days in there.
Cleveland?
Yeah, they have a great museum there. I attended a concert. I spent 20 days there, but they took good care of me. I traveled through Georgia and through Kentucky. I didn't go to Alabama. I would have liked to go to Alabama because my great grandparents came from Alabama also.
When you went to America, what did Americans think of your accent? Like, where do they think you were from?
They thought I spoke very good English. In
Yeah.
fact, I had a bank manager down here some about a year or two ago. He said I spoke better English than he did. I'm not sure. And the first time I went to New York, I picked up a cab, and the cabbie was, an Indian, the guy that used a turban.
Yeah, right. Probably Sikh.
Huh?
Probably Sikh.
Sikh, probably Sikh. And I asked him, where do you think I come from? He looked at me. I had a big nose, and he said, probably from Egypt. So they don't place me. If they don't know anything about me, they can't place me. They don't know what the hell I am.
Did it feel in some sense to you like coming back to a long lost homeland in any way?
No. But I was very emotional because I visited several battlefields. And in one of them, I wandered away from the track, and I stumbled on the place where my great great grandfather was standing there with Longstreet. the Battle of Chickamauga.
Are there any unique phrases or expressions that you still remember, or that maybe that you use personally?
My grandmother used queer. She said she used to say, so and so is a queer man, which is a strange man. And she used the word naturally. It didn't mean that.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. The exception that it has today. I went to the States once in Georgia, and I told Dan Coleman, well, where's your garage?
Carriage for car?
Yeah. Garage for a car. You must remember, they came here before there was a motor car, an automobile.
Uh-huh.
The queer thing, I remember that very clearly because,
The queer thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like 18th century Victorian English.
Yeah.
About this matter.
Yeah.
I like the way you say what, like what, or where. There's a little bit of like a where or what.
Yeah. Well, my cousin is named Robert Lee, but he won't have anything to do. He won't have anything to do with the Confederates. Yeah, he speaks English.
Does your cousin speak English like you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So there's still some people who speak like this.
Oh, we're probably the last ones. And he speaks English with me when we're in public to show off.
Really?
And we were arguing yesterday. We were arguing about. I said it's alimony, and he said no, it's alimony. I said no, I think it's alimony. No, it's alimony. Then he sent me an internet thing that spells out the word and says alimony.
But alimony might be a regional pronunciation.
Could be, but but I heard it down Charlie Harper when they're discussing the alimony of his brother.
Charlie Harper?
Yeah. 2.5 Men. The series.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? I'm a big fan. I watched it maybe 5 or 6 times. The whole thing. He was my hero.
Does he pronounce it like alimony?
Yeah, no, he pronounces it as alimony. Yeah, alimony.
When you watch these American TV shows these days,
they hate me because I put it in the English. I hate dubbed stuff. I hate it. I can't imagine. I can't imagine John Wayne speaking Portuguese. It's hideous. It's ridiculous.
So the rest of your families, they're like, no, we want to see this in Portuguese dub. But you insist on English.
Watch it there. I'll watch it. Some of the place. I'll put the thing. What do you call it? The legendas. What's in legendas? The
subtitles.
Huh? The captions. I'll put the captions in Portuguese so they'll understand. Because I have a girlfriend, and she doesn't speak a word of English. So when we watch films together, I put it in English, and then I put the captions so she'll read it. But I watch all the big films, all the good, Sam Peckinpah, and I used to like movies very much. And I have the Citizen Kane here.
And how do you feel about it culturally?
Of course, culturally, I think the average Brazilian and the average American are all idiots.
Okay. Outside of language, are there any customs or traditions that your family has
Well,
maintained?
for one thing, we never commemorated Halloween.
No.
No, this came down to Brazil, after we were colonized by the Americans, because we import everything, films, movies. We never commemorated Halloween. Halloween was brought to the States by the Irish, and the Irish settled mainly in the North.
That's so interesting that you guys essentially skipped over that phase of American history when America got Halloween. And so for you, it's this totally foreign thing. Are there any unique foods that you have?
We make cornbread to this date.
You still make cornbread?
Oh, yeah. My daughter makes cornbread. I make cornbread.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We make baked beans also.
Baked beans?
Yeah. I had a cookbook that my mother and my grandmother had. Biscuits, I haven't made biscuits for a long time.
You make biscuits?
Yeah. The recipe was passed down
Yeah.
through generations. Cornbread. Here it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I went to the States, I had what's the name of that chain that makes typical Southern food?
Oh, there's a few. Waffle House, Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel. Yeah.
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel.
You
And
went to Cracker Barrel. What did you think of the food at Cracker Barrel?
well, we didn't have that kind of food here. We had cornbread and what's the thing you make with corn that's real yellow and you have it at home?
Porridge?
No, porridge is in English. I forgot the name, but my grandfather used to have it.
Grits.
No, we didn't have grits. I learned about grits in the States.
You
Yeah.
You didn't have grits. Okay.
No, we didn't have grits. Ground corn.
I'm looking it up. Is it mush?
Mush. That's it. Mush. We had mush.
Cornmeal mush. I've never heard of this. Well, I guess I have heard of it, but
Mush. That's it. Mush. And he used to give it to the dogs, and we used to have mush also.
Okay. And then you never had grits, but you first learned about grits.
First time was in the late 80s when I went to the States.
So grits may be one of those, like, not even really truly off. Like, they may have come later.
Grits is potatoes, isn't it? It's made out of potatoes. Wait a minute, my daughter was on the phone. Wait, Phil.
Do you ever speak to your daughter in English?
No.
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 What does it feel like for you now to be one of the last few people who speaks English like this?
I'm 73 years old. The feeling is that you're I don't believe here nor there. You don't belong. You don't have the belonging.
I guess I don't know how you would describe your own identity. Do you feel Brazilian, American, Confederate?
I feel Brazilian, but I talk about the Brazilians also. And the Americans, look, you guys are crazy. You're all crazy. The Americans are completely out of their minds. They just run around and kill everybody. One of the things I admire and the Americans is their sense of taking advantage of space. You have large things. One day I walked for over half an hour in a parking lot, in Boston.
Yeah, that's well. I don't want to talk too much about politics in this, but I'm just curious. Do you have any thoughts on American politics these days?
Sometimes I'm a Democrat, sometimes I'm a Republican, depending on what we're dealing with. You couldn't have two worse candidates. But I'm a translator. I have no political action.
If people need some translation work, where should they go?
I have a website. It's bettertrans.com.br.
Okay.
That would help a lot.